Welcome to another episode of Fabricate. In this episode, we're going to give this Nerf gun a new paint job. Okay, so it's not technically a Nerf gun, it's a World Tech Warrior, but it's a foam dart gun, and it's a pretty cool gun. So we are going to be repainting this gun for a friend of mine. His son is having a birthday soon, and he's in middle school, so I wanted to repaint this gun for him, and hopefully he thinks it looks cool. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to need to do on this gun is I don't want to paint the drum. Normally I would paint this drum if I was painting this for myself, but because I'm painting it for a middle school kid who probably wants this gun to work as it should, and also the fact that when this turns on it glows blue. Because of that, I want to leave it clear, so I'm actually going to have to tape this whole thing up, and then once I'm done taping it up, I'm going to start taping off some of the parts that I don't want to be painted yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got the drum all taped up. It's not the best tape job in the world, but it will do. So I actually I took a picture that I had found of this model of gun online into Photoshop, and I kind of made a mock-up of what I want the color scheme to be. So I'll throw that up on the screen right now so you can check that out. So I'm going to go ahead and tape off the areas that I don't want to spray paint first, because I'm going to do the blue first. So I'm going to tape off all the areas that I don't want to be blue, and then I'm going to go take this downstairs and spray paint the blue part. So we've got one side all taped up. A little tip, get really good painter's tape. This painter's tape that I have is really bad, so it doesn't stick very well. Now, normally when you're doing this, if you are, wanting to paint different colors like this, most modders would suggest, and I normally would do this, is to take apart the gun and, paint it separately. It makes it a lot easier to access some of these, pieces and stuff like that. But in this case, I really don't trust my ability to put the gun back together in working order, because I'm giving this as a gift. So I'm just doing it this way. So it's a fast and dirty kind of way to do it. It doesn't look great. It will probably, I'll get some, overspray and stuff in certain areas, I'm sure. But the good thing is we're gonna weather it. So once we weather it, a lot of that stuff will blend in. You won't be able to see those mistakes. That's the great thing about weathering. But anyways, so we're gonna switch over to the other side and get that finished. Whole thing. That was a lot of taping. Not very good job at it, but I think it'll do the trick. Like I said, we're weathering it. Something that I had to be wary of was on this scope there is a, lens in there that you don't want to get any paint on. So we need to make sure that we are careful about that. But other than that, I think that we've got this thing ready to paint. So let's take it downstairs and put the first coat of, I don't know, tealish paint on there. If I didn't say so before, the kid that I'm making this for, he really likes the 80s, which is kind of strange to think that there's a middle school kid that is infatuated with the time period that I was born in. Anyways, I love the 80s too, so I'm doing an 80s theme on this, and I'm really excited about it. So we're gonna put the teal on there, and then there's gonna be some pink, which I think is gonna be a little bit easier to do. And then I'm leaving all of the parts that are gray that I've got taped over pretty much. I'm leaving them gray. So we should be good, you know, otherwise. So I'm going to be using this Rust-Oleum, berry pink is the color. They only had it in gloss. I would do it in satin or matte, but they only had it in gloss. So we're just gonna go ahead and use this. This is for the, you know, pink stuff, but first we are going to do Seaside, and it's gloss. They had a matte version of this, but I chose the gloss version because the pink is gloss. We're gonna be weathering it, so it's not really that big of a deal anyways, but yeah, Rust-Oleum, really good paint. Let's go put a coat on. So we've got our first coat of paint on here. Now we are going to take off all of the tape. And here it is. It isn't anywhere close to being perfect. There are a lot of mistakes, a lot of green and you know, teal color on the gray, but like I said, I was doing it fast and dirty. This is going to be weathered, so a lot of that is going to be hidden with the weathering, so we won't really have to worry about it. One of my biggest flaws when it comes to creating is being impatient, and that is why this is, you know, messy in those areas. But also, I probably should have left a lot of this tape on, because I need to tape off certain areas to do the pink now, and now I'm going to have to retape certain areas. So I probably should have left a lot of it on, but this is the current state of the gun. We are going to add the pink part, so we need to do some more taping. And then after that, we get to do my favorite part, which is weathering. We've got it all taped up for the pink details. Got to be very careful when we're spraying this. I try to be liberal with the tape, but you have to be very aware of overspray. So I'm going to try to do very light, quick sprays and everything, so that semi-close to the actual gun, so that I'm not getting that mist all over the place. And hopefully I can get it to look good. So I went ahead and took all the tape off, and this is what we have. It's not perfect by any means. There's a lot of parts where the pink is on the teal color, the teal is on the pink color. Both colors are on the gray color. I actually went back with some rubbing alcohol and hit up the big parts that were really apparent on the gray. But like I said before, weathering is going to be our best friend here, because it's going to hide a lot of those mistakes. So that's the next part. We're actually going to Mod Podge this, and then we are going to start weathering it.
So at this point, I am just taking some Mod Podge and covering the entire thing, making sure to avoid any moving parts too much, because I don't want to Mod Podge them so that they don't move anymore, because Mod Podge is essentially glue. Now I am taking some regular acrylic black paint and mixing a little bit of water in there to make a black wash. This is going to make it so that it's a lot easier to wipe off, because you essentially want to cover the entire thing in this black wash, wipe it off, and then all that's going to be left is the black in the cracks and crevices and everything. Then I'm eventually going to go back with some black paint and without the water mixture and do a dry brush, but first just want to hit the whole thing with a good black wash. So here I have taken some regular black acrylic paint and I am just dry brushing it into the cracks and everything that I think need a little bit more weathering. This just adds extra depth to your weathering job. So now I'm taking some brown acrylic paint and I'm going back and adding some brown to the weathering, because weathering usually isn't just one color. I chose brown because it's the color of dirt and mud a lot of times. I then went back and took a wet paper towel and kind of scrubbed at some of these areas, because I really wanted it to look like not only was this gun weathered, but it might have been cleaned at some point, and they tried to make sure it looked a little bit newer, but it still has gotten dirty over time. The other reason I wanted to do that is because I didn't want to lose the colors in the weathering too much. I wanted to make sure that you could still tell that it was that teal color and that pink color. And then I do pretty much the last step in weathering metal, and that is to take some Rub and Buff, or this is an off-brand version of Rub and Buff. I'm using a metallic silver, and I'm just going and dry brushing the Rub and Buff onto the areas that would typically get more wear on them. Mostly corners, raised corners and stuff like that. I go over the whole thing with that, and then I would try to dry brush over the flat areas so that it looks a little bit more weathered. After weathering with the Rub and Buff on the other side of the gun, it's all done. So let's check this thing out, 80s style.